Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the Back Office Teardown Lab. Today it's a weird video actually. I'm just going to be preparing these, and if you saw my recent tweets, I've basically taken a standard booby board and I've modified the firmware on it so that it can drive up to seven of these bad boys at once, and it doesn't do that by default configuration, so I'm going to sort of be modifying these slightly. But I'm also preparing a bunch of these because I've doing a patron giveaway, and I promised to send my patrons a box of stuff each, and the box has diminished somewhat in the stuffness because everybody, it's amazing, everybody Virtue's on Patreon is global, they're all over the place, and by the time you do all the customs and shipping it becomes a bit unreasonable to send boxes of toot. So I wanted to send something boxes of quality, and I think this is a really fun little thing to receive. What I've done, you might have seen all the wires and variaboard and all of that stuff that I had in my own video on this when I'd made my one for personal use, but I've simplified it, and that's what you're seeing here. I basically soldered a pin header onto there. It's got the firmware pre-programmed onto it. I'm just checking the pin out. It's brown, by the way, on the servo wire is ground, so you want to kind of have it that way if you are doing this. And I've pre-programmed the firmware. I've cut the little LED jumper here that powers that LED, so you get an extra channel to drive, so you get a total of 7. So you can see this yellow wire here is on pin 15, so you've got 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10 and 9. You've got 7 going on there that you can use. And I've actually reconfigured the crystal. So if you see a standard booby board, and there's a whole load of them here, the crystal is not in circuit, so you get 2 extra pins that way. But I wanted that gives you 8 megahertz operation, but I needed 20 megahertz so I could get more power, well, more higher frequency interrupts for the virtual bit banked PWMing. But don't worry about that complexity. All you need to know is basically you can hook this up to your PC via USB or your Raspberry Pi, load up a terminal emulator because it appears as a standard serial port, and you can just type, echo 15, which is this pin that's driving the servo, 1500 to drive it one way, 1520 to drive it the other way entirely, and 1510 somewhere in the middle to lock it in the middle. That's it really. It's really basic, but with that you can create all sorts of fun things. So I'm going to put on my soldering iron because I want to modify these boards. So I'm just gonna chat while I do it really. It's just like you're joining me for a chat while I'm doing some work. And the work here is to get these pin headers on it. And I'm not going to include the jack here, the power jack, because you only really need that if you're driving 7 servos at once and you need the auxiliary power that they need. And if you're doing that, you'll be able to do that yourself. It's not a big deal. They're just a standard AC adapter center positive thing. So I'm not going to do all. I should talk. I think I have too many boards. I'm not going to put these headers on all the boards. I'm just going to put them on, say, this bunch here, and this bunch I'll leave neat, because not everybody wants the pin headers, and if they want the pin headers they'll certainly probably want all of them, and they might want them on the bottom because they might be putting it into a bit of breadboard. So I'll put these ones here for my patrons, because even if they want to use it with breadboard of their own pin headers, it's easy enough to just remove 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more for luck. No, come on. 6. So that leaves me with this random 4-piece to get lost. So all I'm going to do is just what will I do first? I'll tell you what. Let's zoom in. You can see what I'm doing a bit more closely. First, I'm going to cut the solder jumpers for the LED. So you can see here you've got an RC3 LED that you can use basically off the booby board directly, and that's connected by this solder jumper, and there's a tiny trace in there. So you can just remove that to take the LED out of circuit. So I'm just going to do that on all of them. A couple of drags of the knife is normally enough. And it's quite easy if you want the LED to get that back into circuit, of course. You just put a blob of solder between those 2 solder jumper points. Just join the pads. God, I'm having a bit of difficulty with this. Just zoom out a bit, give myself a little bit more room. It's a tiny little thing to cut, and I tell you what, my eyesight certainly seems to be getting worse. We're getting older. And older and wiser, hopefully. And I'm just really doing a lot of belt and braces. You normally just need one slice, but I'm just really cranking it through because I don't want to have to do it again. Nicely done. I tell you what, do we leave them in this card for the moment. There's a point where it's worth splitting them, but I don't need to do that one. I can actually test it. So if I put the servo on here and power it up, the servo should kind of do a weird jiggle park thing on boot up. So I'm just going to move these solder jumpers now. So I'm going to try to see if I can just drag them across. Yeah, I did. Just going to put a tiny bit here. Yeah. And I might just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing because it's kind of fun, really. So it's actually a solder jumper on a two-way, and you want to move the solder jumper totally across to the other side. So I'm kind of heating it and then flicking, and that sort of puts its solder basically on the soldering iron, really. And then flick it over. And then I'm just adding an extra bit of solder here because I want to just pull the pads back on, and that's it. Try again. So that's them clean. So you can see it's just 3 individual pads. And then I'm just adding a tiny blob of solder on the top. The reason you're adding the solder, by the way, isn't just because you need more solder, because you kind of still got the same amount of solder on there. You just need the flux. You want to just get the flux going on. Oops, get off there. I went really carried away on that one. You do not want it going on those in-circuit programmer pins. Yep, here we are. So remember, of course, you can always drive the power to your servo from elsewhere, but just have a shared ground. So if you're using a servo of a different voltage, perhaps, I think it should work. Certainly if you've got a servo of more current and you want to run it off something else, you don't have to run it through the pins on the buoy board. In fact, don't run it through the pins on the buoy board because they're not going to want to carry. I don't know what their current rating is, but they're pretty thin traces, so you've got a good chance of blowing them. But I have tested it with the 7 9-gram motors, and that seems to be okay. They're not blowing the traces. Kind of cocked that one up. It's weird, isn't it? We did all the other ones. This one doesn't want to play ball. More braid. If you're ever buying braid, by the way, buy the flux braid. This is the non-flux braid, and it's a real horror to use. And there we go. So that's all of that bit done. So we've done that bit, we've done that bit, so that means these are pretty good. I've already pre-programmed these, by the way. I programmed them in bulk, so they should be good to go bulk-wise. So let's split the boards. My hands are full of boobies. Blue-footed boobies. So make that's the pile to do, and then this is the pile of done. So I'm going to do the same thing, just mount these on the top, and I'm leaving the end pin, so I'm mounting them between pins 15, 16 and 17. And it's a tiny bit tricky, so I'm going to be doing the whole floaty soldery thing technique, and then just tack where I can. Really I've really messed this one up. It's very ugly work today. Don't know what I'm thinking. Not enough coffee, I think. All rush. Hang on. Oh, my soldering iron's not very hot, that's why. Right. It's weird, if you don't have your soldering iron on the right temperature, sometimes it just doesn't do it right. I do see some YouTubers who are doing a bit of soldering, and sometimes it just kind of annoys me because there you go, they're running them too cold. And whoever's going to get this will know which one it is because it's got a tinned pad that shouldn't be. I'll let them clean that out. So I'm just going to push this through from the back. I'm making such a meal out of this bloody thing. What is going on? Very strange today. I do apologise. But at least you know it was made with real blood, sweat and tears, this one. And what I'm going to do, before we continue, I'm just going to show you what it looks like when it's tested. So I've got a wire here, just a standard USB wire, and I'm not going to plug it into a computer, it's just going to have power on it. So I've got that powered on, and I'm going to take the wire with the orange wire pointing that way. So I'm going to hold that there. Let's see, ready? Did you see that? And that, show you again. See how that moved and it doesn't want to move? One more go. So that's good, that's it. Quality controlled. Job's a good one. So then that'll go in the part, but I'm just going to write here on the little label Servo, which is S, and then the 1.0 or S1. If you see S1 on it, then you know that's got the Servo 1 firmware. In fact, this one doesn't say it. This says sus because I thought this board was broken. So I'm going to change this one to S10 Servo board. We'll do a few more. I'm sure you're not going to be that interested in seeing me doing any more, but just to sort of let you know then, so if you receive one of these, it's going to be I'm going to be really kind of interested. Now I'm going to do it in bulk, by the way. I'm sort of setting up a process, so I'm putting the pins in and leaving them on the edge so I can tack them all in one go. Yeah, I'd love to see what you're going to make with them. It's really easy to just use a scripting language or anything really. You can even do it just from batch files if you're using Windows to drive these things. So a really early use back in the day, if you recall servers, you can see if they've got 100% usage and all the different usages. I made a visual thing with these. It was an early version of the Vubi board, not as refined as these ones. But yeah, I'd connected it to a web server, and basically the web server, you could show multiple from them, and the web server would poll all these other servers to see their CPU usage. So you could get something that was basically a graph, a visual graph. You could look on the wall and see where the little arrows, because you can hook little arrows onto the servos or flags, or just all sorts of things. I think it'd be interesting to make a sort of clock, wouldn't it? Like a really visual clock that just moves things around. That would be kind of fun. So I'm just going to solder whichever is the easiest pin, and I've gone for the middle pin on the last two. Let's see if this one, middle pin. Middle pin. You can see how much quicker and better it is now. I'm doing it kind of properly. And then the trick is put your thumb on it, have a look on the edge, put your thumb on it, and what you want to do is just very gently heat it and it'll move. And while you're pushing, and you'll seat it basically properly, because it might be at an angle or a slightly bit wonky. You don't need that in your life. You don't need wonk. That one's wonky, for example. You can see it's bending out there. We'll sort that one out. That one, there we go. You'll get a little bit of warmth through the pin to your fingertip, but it's not going to burn you really, just as long as you're not hanging around there. And I'm going to soon need a new tip for this soldering iron. It's weird, it's developed a hole. Now I've used it for probably best part of 10 years or something, and you can see there, see that little dimple? There's a hole forming on the end. So what happens is, as the soldering irons are sitting there, technically I think they're always losing material. It's sort of vaporizing the tip, even though they're temperature controlled. If you think about it, it's sitting there at a few hundred degrees, maybe up to 400 degrees, and the metal is just eroding, I think that's where it goes. So that's, I think, what's causing my little hole. And then you've got fluxes and all these things which are corrosive, and they take their toll. But it's I got good innings, to be honest. This is the tip that came with the iron, and I'm sure I bought a bunch. I usually do, and I bought a bunch of spares and filters and all the usual sort of thing you have for all the different gadgets. And yeah, I never seem to have to use them. Right, there's our boards. Let's do bulk QA now. It would be nice to have loads of servos, but what's the point? You'd have to have loads of USBs. If I was really going for it, I'd put a USB doctor, power doctor, whatever they're called, in line, so we could measure any power change. So that moved. So I'll have to reset it every time to that side. Plug it in. Good. Check it for it's fighting me. That's what you want. So that's good. Let's put that here. Next one. If I've got the danger of putting these on the wrong way around, don't I? Good. So orange inbound. Twist this over. Plug it in. That's good. That there. New board. Orange over. This is basically, if you're doing any real world production, this is what you do, by the way. I'm teaching you how you do in your mass production. Turn it over. You've got to make a process for it. And that's my little process. Let's try the last one. Check that. That's good. And you can leave that there, that's fine. I'll leave one connected so I don't forget which way round it is if I'm playing with it. And then I'm going to put these all lined up like so, and then just write the same. Serial 1, serial 1, serial 1, serial 1, serial 1. And what I'll do is, as these ones are going out to patrons, I'm going to sign them on the bottom for fun, and they'll be winging their way to you. So there you go, that's a whole rattle of them. And I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to do the cutting these and getting them ready, but I'm going to leave this card on the shelf because I'll do sell booby boards, and I'll probably sell if I'll put a drop down so you can buy one with a servo firmware on it. And that'd be nice for you. So I hope that's been slightly interesting to you, and if you're a patron, look out for your box. But thank you very much and have a wonderful evening wherever you are. Bye bye. Got all the boxes ready. There's a load of boxes, you can't see them there, but loads of them. So I'm just deciding what to put in each box. So I'm going for the signed Booby Servo with a servo, the whole kit and caboodle in there. You have to provide your own USB wire, unfortunately, but they'll have loads of those. Those are USB minis. I'm going to put in, I think, a baby boomer in each one, and look, I've got a whole rack of baby boomers. So we'll just get those baby boomers in the old boxes. These are going to be very rattly boxes at the end of the day. Now, some of you will get some of these, and those are really cool. Those are any 555 circuits already made up. So you've got ground, output and VCC, just everything you want, and you just twiddle the little twiddly knob and you can adjust the frequency. So that's cool. And some of them will be wrapped, some won't. In fact, that unwrapped one is probably the one I was looking at. I've got enough of those for all of you. Ooh, I do. I've got enough for all of you, and not one left for myself. Very sad, but oh no, I have got one. There you go. Your need is greater than mine, clearly, because you've been looking after me and I want to look after you. Now, some of you will get these items. They look like USBs with a big one and a mini, and I say some of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of you. And what they are, you attach a lithium cell to this, and you see the battery contacts. You'll see a B- and a B+ on the bottom, and that lets you can just charge up the lithium cell and then use it as a power bank. So it's basically all of the boost converter that lives in a power bank, but in a single little module for you. So that's bloody fun, bloody useful. What else have we got a bunch of? And we got a bunch of these things, and these are sound making boards, so they're pre-programmed with different sounds. Like some of them, I think these ones are the ones which make animal sounds, allegedly, but it's hard to tell. So let's just pop one of those in each as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see I'm counting them so I don't forget a box there. And these other sounds, these are cool. These are like making, these are like police sirens and stuff too, like different noisemakers. Do you remember those things you used to get in the car that used to have buttons and used to make machine gun sounds and all sorts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. We've all got plenty of these little gadgets for all of you. So I'd really like to see some of these in action, guys. I'm going to be looking out for your output on these. And anything else good? No, that's pretty much the same old toot. We've got these ones, oops, which are more complicated, but they require more learning. They basically add, you can record voice onto these chips. But there you go, let's not worry about those. More complicated than it's worth, and it's going to be probably tricky enough to post these as it is. So look at that, all these little knickknacks. Hopefully you'll have some fun. If you do, let me know. Enjoy. Boo.